Hello and welcome to Fat Kid Fit Bod. I'm your friendly neighborhood trainer, Noah Sage Zimmerman. I'm a professional personal trainer based in Los Angeles, California, and I help men and women build bodies that look and feel strong. This podcast will focus not just on physical health, but also mental health and the challenges that make it hard to prioritize your health. I'm here to tell you how you can eat delicious meals, travel, work, build strong relationships, be social, and live the life you want, all while building and maintaining a body you love. With the help of other professionals and people that prioritize health, I'm giving away my best practices and reviewing emerging research in health and fitness so you can feel your best, look your best, and live life to the fullest. Welcome back to Fat Kid Fit Bod, episode 4 of season 3. We have our first repeat guest, Mr. Gabriel Loza. He is a board-certified physical therapist. He has a bachelor's in science and kinesiology with an emphasis in exercise science from Sonoma State University and a doctor of physical therapy degree from West Coast University. He currently works at Muller Weber Physical Therapy in Santa Barbara as an orthopedic physical therapist. He currently lives in Santa Barbara with his wife, Sarah, and his daughter, Taya. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Gabriel Loza.
Gabriel. I like that. You never call me Gabriel.
I know. It feels more cute and nice right now. Professional. Grown up.
Oh, thank you. I'm a big grown up now.
Yeah, you have a daughter.
I know. It's wild.
That still blows my... I mean, a little backstory. Like, I have known Gabe since we were 12 years old, and now he's got a little 2-year-old daughter.
Yeah. And she looks pretty much just like him.
But Gabe and I go way back. We played football together. We did track together. One of my closest and best friends. And as I was saying, he's an incredible physical therapist. Extremely intelligent guy. So, I would love to know what because we grew up playing sports together. We both kind of entered into the same space. I'm a personal trainer, nutritionist. You went into physical therapy. What led you to being a physical therapist?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you for having me again. It's a joy to be back. What led me to being a physical therapist? I think, I really was drawn to the fact that physical therapy is very holistic. It's the whole thing is improve the way you move, which movement is medicine. I don't have to give anybody pills, and I see a lot of progress. That's something that's kind of rare in the medical field. And I see people on a regular basis every week, 1 time a week, 2 times a week, and it's, a lot of times for a month, 2, 3 months at a time. And so you really get to see a lot of progress, and that's really satisfying. Initially, like you said, we were athletes. The whole myriad of injuries, just, how it goes.
Yeah, you had a few injuries in high school. I remember, was it our junior year of track? You were out for most of it because of a back injury.
Yeah. So back strains, like really bad back spasms, ankle sprains, AC sprains, concussions. That goes. Concussions are a part of just being part of the San Marcos Royals.
Yes. Gabe is a fucking sweetheart. But when he was on the football field, he would get this look in his eyes that was terrifying. I've never seen him have it anywhere else.
It's a good relief sometimes.
I do miss it. I
bit.
Even though, it was. I think just to be honest, I think it was the violence of it that was fun, the most fun. If we're being honest, we had good camaraderie with our teammates. Like, we were all brothers.
I like
the
camaraderie. I just miss the smell of the grass, that practice smell. That's what
I was going to say, the locker room.
Well, that too.
just the smell of Old Bay. No, not Old Bay. That's
the
a seasoning.
Old Spice.
Old Spice. Thank you.
I just miss that Axe body spray smell.
Yeah. Ball sweat and Old Spice. That would be way worse if it was Old Bay seasoning that they put on crab and ball sweat. That'd be like an even worse smell. You remember that story? So this is a funny story that I don't know if Gabe remembers, but there was an exchange student, I believe, that was at San Marcos, and he would walk around the guy's locker room naked. And apparently, apparently the size of his dick made a lot of people uncomfortable. So someone went to Coach Hesselmeyer, which was our head football coach, and like
Rest in
Coach
peace.
Hesselmeyer had to go tell this poor kid to be like, "Hey, you can't walk around naked anymore."
There you go.
Um,
I do not remember that.
no, I remember that very clearly.
Not at all.
I don't think actually was ever in the locker room when he was naked, but I remember someone
Were you the
telling
one
me
that
that story.
complained? Sounds like you were the one that complained.
Don't tell
Sounds like
anybody.
you were made very uncomfortable.
Oh, dude. Okay, dude. Thank you. Yeah, I get it. I mean, we both had pretty bad injuries in high school, so I think that's a. I mean, I know that was a big contributing factor to me becoming a physical or not a personal trainer, and you becoming a physical therapist. But I know you had just gone to Esalen Institute up in Big Sur, California, to do a craniosacral therapy workshop. And I know it's like a new upcoming form of therapy, and I know it's a little woo-woo, and I am a little woo-woo myself. So I would love to hear more about what craniosacral therapy is.
Yeah, craniosacral therapy. It's well, Esalen was amazing. I was just super zened out. I got introduced to craniosacral therapy at work. I have a couple therapists that I work with that use it, and one of them is like kind of a mentor figure for me. She's kind of widely regarded as like just a really, really high quality therapist. And I just noticed like all of her patients would just get better. And it was one of those things, as a recent graduate, we're very much taught that evidence-based is everything. And, craniosacral is not necessarily an evidence-based practice. It's not like best practice evidence-based. There is some research that says it's, helpful and useful.
Why don't you tell us what it is first?
So craniosacral, it's really gentle, right? And that was kind of initially what drew me to it, because my hands, at the end of the day, I mean, part of what we do is manual therapy, right? We're using our hands on people, whether that's soft tissue or joint mobs. But yeah, my hands were just starting to kill me, and she's like, "There's another way. This is also effective." And so craniosacral is kind of a branch of osteopathy, right? So osteopathy or osteopathic work. So osteopaths use it. It's a way of just manipulating, the skeletal system, right? You're looking at alignment. You're looking at just the body as a whole. Craniosacral specifically, you're looking at the cranial rhythm. You're looking at the connection between your occipital bone, so the base of your skull, and your sacrum, and your whole spinal cord, right? So it's the same, it's basically the two ends of the same rope. And with cranial rhythm, you're looking at the cerebrospinal fluid, how that flows through the spinal canal. You're looking at the membranes in the brain. And so, yes, it's kind of out there. It's very subtle, right? And it's something that you kind of have to train your hands to feel. And that's, we spent a week at Esalen just figuring out how to feel it, how to get the basics of it. And then my mentor, her name is Jean DeBettis. She is, I couldn't say enough good things about Jean. So she's kind of teaching me what she does, which is, kind of her own thing. So it's a little bit more of osteopathy and craniosacral. Whatever she does, it works.
Yeah, I was reading some studies in preparation for us talking about this, and one of them was a meta-analysis of a bunch of randomized controlled trials, and it was saying that many of these patients with chronic pain in this meta-analysis suggested that there was significant effects on reduction in pain and function after using craniosacral therapy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it. It's one of the main things that we try to tap into. It just calms down the nervous system. You're acting on the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. And if you can get that to calm down, um, things just tend to feel better. Like any aches and pains. I've had it where someone was like, "Oh, my arm hurts," and I tried all the traditional PT stuff. Things weren't getting better, and I'm just like racking my brain. I'm like, "Well, let's try this." And all of a sudden, you feel the cranial rhythm. You do kind of your thing for a bit. People are like, "What the heck did you do?" I'm like, I'm glad it worked. Yeah, I'm glad it worked,
Is it mostly used in like a rehabilitation setting, or can you use it as like a preventative maintenance type practice?
Oh, you can so there are therapists that just do craniosacral. They're craniosacral therapists. Their title would be CST, craniosacral therapist. I am not a craniosacral therapist. You have to go through a lot of classes. There's a whole certification process. There's different, you know, places where you can get certifications, but so far I've just taken the first introductory class. Pretty new to the whole world of PT, but of craniosacral. But yeah, one of the instructors that was teaching at Esalen actually has her own private craniosacral practice about 2 blocks from my house in Santa
Oh,
Barbara.
no shit.
Yeah, and she's rad. She's really really cool. Shout out to Brooke Holland, CST. Yeah,
So
she's pretty fantastic.
is what makes it like woohoo right now is because there's not a lot of studies and evidence backing it up, and it's a relatively new practice, or is there some
No, it's been
Eastern
around.
kind of?
Yeah, well, it's been around for a while. I wouldn't say it's like a newer practice. It's been around probably as long as I think it really became popular in like the 70s and 80s. But it's been, forms of it have been practiced for longer than that. Um, why it might be perceived more as woo-woo, um, is like you're feeling the cranial rhythm. We're taught in physical therapy school, those bones are fused, they do not move, right?
Mm,
There's no movement there. And so there's kind of a contrast there. And then when you're receiving craniosacral therapy, it feels like nothing. Like it feels like someone is just gently putting their hands on you, um, because it's so subtle. It's like when you get a massage, you feel them going into your tissues, you feel things releasing. Um, Craniosacral is very different.
mm.
And so it can be very relaxing. The first time I had a craniosacral, a full session, it lasted about an hour and a half. And I got up, and I mean, I've had headaches for a long time. I've been suffering with that, trying to, work through it. And I stood up, and I felt like my head was a balloon just like floating on my body. It felt
Mm.
amazing. And a lot of the people in the class, I mean, there's a room full of 40 people doing this. You hear people snoring, falling asleep, just because their nervous system is just like completely shutting down and relaxing, you know?
So I mean that brings up a good point. Why is it so important for us to be able to completely relax our central nervous system, whether it's at the end of the day or post exercise or in like a rehabilitation setting?
That's a great question. You look at, balance. Everything in life you should have a balance of things. And if you're always revved up, if your autonomic nervous system is always on high alert, you're gonna run into some trouble. That's when people are like that. You have that stress, that anxiety, that constant, and your body never gets a chance to reset.
That
Um,
chronic stress leads to chronic inflammation and a lot of bad things
yeah,
down the stream.
yeah, and that's, I mean, that those simple kind of self-care things, or even just diaphragmatic breathing. If you can get a good breathing practice going, even something like that, your blood pressure goes down, our autonomic drive goes down that fight or flight sympathetic. Um, you know, I mean, the parasympathetic nervous system, the one that's kind of relaxing, that is responsible for a lot of bodily functions. And if that's not working well, then things are just going to get off balance. And one way or another, if you're off balance, things just, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be rough.
Yeah. How much of your practice is teaching your clients to be able to, work on breathing or other techniques you use to relax their central nervous system?
Oh, a lot. Yeah. I mean, like good breath control and diaphragmatic breathing, that's the absolute foundation for core stability.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't breathe well, how do you expect to use your abdominals, right? I mean, you could be strong, you could be physically strong, and you could have really strong abdominals, but if you're an athlete and you're trying to run, right, and you can't breathe well, how are you going to breathe and use your abdominals? People that are like trying to brace here, but how do I breathe? It's like you have to be able to do both. You have to
Totally.
be able to functionally engage here.
What was the name of our PE teachers in middle school that had designed the obstacle course? They had a son that was our PE teacher too. A husband and wife.
Yeah.
Sprague or Sprague? Sprague. So
yeah,
one day, Mrs. Sprague, who all of you should know was the intense one. She was super awesome lady, but man, she was there
to work.
Yeah, she was there to work. She was not there to coddle you. She was there to turn a bunch of soft 11-year-olds into some tough, physically active ones. And I remember one day she had told me, or maybe the class, probably didn't tell me, like just us having a conversation, that she had known a friend that would do 1,000 crunches every day, or 1,000 sit-ups every day, and that he eventually needed back surgery. And for the longest time, like, that stuck with me because I could not understand. I was like, he's clearly working on his core, but to your point about core strength, diaphragmatic breathing being everything, sit-ups, crunches really just work those upper abdominal muscles and doesn't work those lower abdominal muscles that deal with, anterior pelvic tilt, posterior pelvic tilt, core stability, diaphragmatic breathing. So it kind of made sense to me now that I'm like, what the hell I'm talking, I know some things, and it makes sense to me now. Yeah.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, I mean, point, that's what it's all about.
It's what it's all about, and it's ever since. And one thing that I've actually started adding into my own personal practice, I've been training with a coach for about, it's been like 4 or 5 months now. He has me do like diaphragmatic breathing after each workout, and man, I feel like I recover so much better after doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Breathing is everything, as is core stability.
Breathing is everything. Core stability, and let's talk about like what that means. I think that's really important because a lot of people will be like core strength, and like what you're meaning by core stability, or at least what I tell my patients. You have your spine, you have your pelvis, right? Anytime that we move our arms, anytime that we move our legs, that's an external force on our body, right? Gravity is pulling that down. So we have to stabilize our pelvis and our lumbar spine so that nothing moves. That's what stability means. It means that you have, no movement. And so if you can realize that in your exercises and you say, okay, I'm doing, an RDL, I'm doing a bird dog, I'm doing dead bugs. If you're doing all these movements and your back is arching or you're going into pelvic tilt, it's like, no, this is what we're trying to prevent. And so just defining that stability aspect of it, I think, can be a big game changer for a lot of people because people go, oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah, and I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but, when I talk to my clients, I often talk about how the lower back is meant for stability, whereas hips are meant for mobility. But most people have extremely tight hips and extremely weak core, so a lot of people end up having back pain because their back then has to rely onto that mobility section to get, they'll get into crazy anterior pelvic tilt, so super arched back, like Kim Kardashian, that scene where she's trying to balance, or she's balancing that champagne flute on her butt. You see that people do that all the time, and often that's why people end up having back pain and back injuries.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty spot on. Like
Awesome.
if you look at structure and function, lumbar spine, like those facet joints, it's just all like locked in there. And yeah, there's some movement, flexion, extension, rotation, side bend. You can do all those things with your lumbar spine. But as far as, lifting, if you're trying to lift something, you know, don't lift with your back.
Yeah, and I would say, I've been going really hard in the paint when it comes to mobility training lately. And one thing that I've discovered is that, it is okay to load, with a rounded back, or to really get your hips into anterior pelvic tilt, because that actually lengthens the hamstrings and glutes, so you can actually get a better stretch. But to be able to do that stuff, you've got to be able to do the basics well. You got to have a strong core, you got to have a strong glutes, mobile hips, and I'm wondering, for clients of yours, I mean, most of your clients are, more elderly, correct?
It's really a mix. My youngest patient's 9, my oldest patient's 95.
Okay,
and
that's
it's
a big
like
range.
it's everybody in between. So it's college kids, people that are middle-aged, all the way up to, as old as they come.
So I'm curious, how many of your clients that come to you are people that deal with hypermobility, or are very flexible, and that has caused a considerable amount of their symptoms?
Yeah, it's not super super common, but I definitely see it, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying as far as loading in different positions. You want to have like the next progression. Once you have control and stability, the next step of that is controlled mobility, right? So you have strength throughout the range of motion. If your knees hyperextend, right, you want to be strong through that full range of motion, right? If you're not strong at that end range, as soon as you get a load that is, larger than your strength capacity, boom, you just tore your ACL.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a common one.
Yeah, so I mean, I see people all the time, and they're, I'm trying to move the leg around, all of a sudden they just put their foot like behind their head. I'm like, holy cow! They're like, oh yeah, I used to be a dancer. I'm like, all right, well, we gotta strengthen through this.
Yeah, I think that this takes us to like, there's a big trend, and I talk about this a lot too, is that how important resistance training is, how important strength is, being able to control and display strength through your ability, your range of motion, essentially, and that if you're trying to load through a range of motion that you are not strong in, that's when injuries tend to happen.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of the difference between flexibility and mobility. So flexibility, yeah, you can passively do that. You can touch your toes, you have the range of motion. But yeah, can you do an RDL all the way down to the ground and all the way back up and get those strong hamstrings,
So I think this would be good for people to hear, besides body work that you do as a PT. A good amount of your practice, I'd imagine, is giving your clients resistance exercises to build strength.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Buildings. I mean, you can do exercises for pain control. You can do exercises for endurance, strength. You know. You can like what we're mainly focused with is function. For your body to maintain homeostasis. So we're looking at, especially muscles and tendons. in order to maintain tendon homeostasis, you need to have consistent load, consistent stress on your tendons. So I look at people with, rotator cuff issues, people with, maybe some patellar issues. If you're not loading your tendons regularly, and then all of a sudden, your buddy calls you up, hey, let's go play softball this weekend, let's go play volleyball or something like that, and all of a sudden you're swinging for the fences or you're trying to throw super hard like you were in high school, you know, load versus capacity. Load is too much for your capacity.
Let's I think this is an interesting topic because I know we were going to talk about returning to sport, and I think this is a good way to segue sort of towards that topic. Is what is some like actionable items someone can do to, we all know what resistance training looks like when it comes to building muscle, building strength, and you can condition your tendons and ligaments during this training. But is there more specific training people can do to strengthen their tendons and ligaments? I mean, from my perspective, being coming from this, starting in the sports world, plyometrics. It's a great way to work on tendon and ligament strength in the lower body. But when it comes to the shoulder and you're not being sport specific, like you're not constantly out there hitting softballs or playing tennis, what are things people can do to focus on that tissue conditioning?
Other than strength training?
Unless it is just strength training.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at strength training as, just doing like traditional kind of lifts, there's other things you can do. You can do, like I said, you can do some controlled mobility work. It all really just depends on what your goal is. What are you trying to do? Are you just trying to pick your kids up? I'm going to give you different exercises for that. Or whether you're like, I like to play volleyball every once in a while. What can I do to make sure I'm not going to be, painful? So now it's like, okay, if you're playing volleyball, now we got to get strong with your arm up here, with your arm over your head. How can you? Because the mechanics of that's totally different, right? You're not used to having a big load up overhead, and so it's also an emphasis on what we're strengthening. Do we really just need to strengthen your rotator cuff? Maybe, but functionally the rotator cuff isn't a big power muscle, right? All your power is going to come from all your scapular muscles. So we need to make sure your scapula is moving well. In addition to, we want your rotator cuffs to be strong and pain-free. So there's multiple things as far as, okay, what exactly do we want to do? And then let's look at what we need to make sure is strong.
It's super interesting. Like one thing that you said that kind of popped an idea in my head is that how common injuries are in sport, because looking at baseball, for example, and like a pitcher, the human arm is not meant to throw 80 fastballs, in a 2-hour period or 3-hour period. It's no wonder why they end up with problems in their arm and end up needing surgery.
Yeah.
So like when it comes
to
and I think this is a really interesting topic to actually talk about, is that I don't know if you see this in your line of work or but I see it pop up a lot in conversations that I'm in around or in certain social media, is how we're like trying to optimize being a human, and like there is no optimization really, because when it comes to life, we really become specialized in what we do every day. A lot of times people talk about how important it is to have like spread toes, which is great for balance and working out your muscle foots. But you look at some of the greatest basketball players in the world and their feet look fucked up, dude, because they're in these super squished tight basketball shoes. So it's also important to know that, like, I kind of lost my train of thought where I was going with this, but how optimization is very particular to what you as a human are doing on a daily basis. So when it comes to sport, go ahead.
I mean, athletes are definitely the exception as far as just humans go, and not the rule. Like, there are plenty of athletes where you look at them and you go, wow, physical specimen. And a lot of times, yeah, they're just absolute freaks of nature, just completely genetically gifted.
Yeah, like me.
But then you go and you break them down and you test them. Okay, let's, this soccer player, jacked legs. Holy cow, has no idea how to use his glutes. Zero. I've seen it so many times. No glute strength. How are you dunking, dude? How are you doing all this crazy stuff? So, I don't know. It just finds a way, Like that athlete mindset goes such a long way where like, I'm going to get it done one way or another. If I need to jump over that, I'll do it. If I need to, run that fast, I'll do it. Regardless of if their foot is crammed in this tiny ass little Nike cleat or if they're, running with good shoes. Like, just like, I'm a freak. I don't care. I'll do it.
Yeah. No, it's really crazy how, the demands, day-to-day stuff, the demands that people put on their bodies will adapt. And so, kind of to our point about strength training is that, really, ultimately, if you're not using it, you're losing it. So to your point about like the weekend warrior that all of a sudden wants to go play a game of softball and, ends up hurting himself, is because he hasn't been using it. And all of a sudden he's using it.
Yeah, they're they'll warm up with a couple of these, just a couple of rotations. Like, yeah, we're good.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready to go. Well, had a beer before this.
We're good. Yeah.
Most of my clients, like, dude, I tell them not to play pickup basketball. Because I think, like, for most of my clients that play pickup basketball, I'd say it's like 80% of them end up getting, like, bad knee injury.
Yeah. It's a lot of times it's a recipe for disaster. If you're, like you said, if you're not sports specific and you're not training, and a lot of times you got to know yourself. If you're the kind of person that can, you can take it easy, you don't need to go, pedal to the metal, like I'm going to get down this court and I'm going to do, like if you're cool with taking a back seat in a pickup game, getting a couple shots off, passing the ball around, probably be fine. But if you're the kind of person that as soon as you get on the court, you're like, I'm 18 again, it's game time, let's make it happen, that might not be the best decision for you.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to realize. I like, as in jiu-jitsu, I experience that all the time, whether it's like me, who I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to take it easy today, and then as soon as I start a roll, it's like fucking balls to the wall. Or there'll be times that I'll roll with somebody, and they'll be like, hey, like, I'm injured, like, can we just, like, flow, like, take it easy? And then before you know it, it's fucking cranked up to, like, 100%. And so, to your point, yeah, it's, like, important. This is so much about ego, like leaving your ego at the door. And most of the times I found when I get injured or I see other people get injured, it's because they haven't been able to let their ego go.
Yeah, it's like Tom Segura trying to win a dunk contest. He just wrecked his shit.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the video, it's worth watching because it is.
Yeah,
it's nasty.
He already won the contest, and then he's like just a little higher. Boom. Done.
He snapped his humerus? No, not his humerus. Did he snap his humerus or his?
He snapped his patellar tendon, and then fell on his elbow, and just I forgot exactly what he did, but he had nerve damage. He broke a lot of shit.
Speaking of Tom Segura, transition away from health. Did you watch his new stand-up special? I
did.
Did you like it?
I thought it was funny. I definitely had some laughs. I actually just watched it the other night. And Mostly Stories, I think, is his best special. And that, I think, was when he was at his fattest. And then he got rich and skinny, and he's still funny. Still a world-class comedian. Yeah. Still have mad respect for the man. But notch down. Although I will say, my brother saw him live. And he said the live show that he saw was funnier than the Netflix special because he had to pull back a little bit, I think, for Netflix.
I could see that. It's like the case of like, it's harder to relate to someone when most of his stories is about like cool rich people things that they do and like the people they meet. But tangent. Okay, so like, what is? Let's talk about returning to sport So
Okay.
let's say, or let's look at it from like a Gen Pop situation. So someone that comes to you, torn ACL, MCL, meniscus, playing pickup basketball, or
Hmm.
they strained a rotator cuff, is part of their rotator cuff, playing softball, pitching, or going
Hmm.
swinging a bat, or even golf. Like people
Yeah,
pull their back.
a lot of people, it's golf, it's tennis, fucking pickleball.
Yeah,
Jesus
so let's talk
Christ.
about that.
If
Let's talk about that stuff actually recently because that's going to be a lot of knee injuries and I'm guessing rotational injuries.
yeah, a lot of golfers it's a lot of shoulders, a lot of backs. Um, Tennis players, yeah, same thing. Shoulders, backs, yeah, a lot of rotational stuff. Tennis is yeah, actually mostly knees. Tennis
So
will
do
really
you?
jack your knees.
I mean, so okay, so like get into the like kind of programming side of things. So there's the sagittal plane. When we talk about like
Hmm.
programming, sagittal plane is basically like front to back movement. Um,
Hmm.
the frontal is side to side, and transverse is rotation. So most people don't train frontal or transverse planes, um, and a lot of that movement is in tennis, in golf,
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
pickleball. So what are
yeah,
what are some things that people can start doing to injury prevention? So let's start with injury
yeah.
prevention and then maybe get into return to sport.
Injury prevention. If you're an athlete, first of all, make sure you're hydrated. You know, you're going into your sport. If you're chronically dehydrated, setting yourself up for some pain. Um, So make sure you're hydrated. Make sure your nutrition's at least you're getting some protein in you, so that your body's able to recover if you're consistently being athletic. Um, Honestly, it's for most lower extremity injuries, even like a back injury, a lot of what you're training, it's same thing. It's glutes and core. If you know how to use your glutes, if you know how to you know engage your core and stabilize your abdominals, that's a lot of prevention. That skips a lot of what I have to try to teach you. And then if you're like, yeah, I can do this, no problem, sweet. Then we can do all more of the fun stuff, because traditionally where a lot of physical therapy falls short, physical therapists, and I think as a whole the profession's getting a lot better at the return to sport part of it, but we're really good at getting people back to just the day-to-day stuff. You know, just I can live my life. I can go to work. I can do kind of the basics. But when you're looking at returning to sport, you got to look at, okay, what specific demands am I going to have to do? Am I rotating in my sport? How fast do I have to rotate? Is this an explosion sport? Because now I have to train into explosion. I have to gradually increase the speed that I train at. Because even if I train in the transverse plane, even if I train in the frontal plane, and I go slowly, that's still not going to really cut it to get you back to that full capacity. So speed can be a thing that's oftentimes overlooked.
Mm-hmm. So when you say speed, you're talking about doing things quickly or slowing it down
Yeah.
for tempo.
So initially, that progression of you want to get stability and then controlled mobility. So you want to make sure things are strong before you progress speed. So if you're somebody who's a high level surfer and you're trying to really get that whip back, you're trying to snap that board, get that big splash, that's a big fast movement. And so you have to be able to eventually train to the point where you can maintain that and that you can be strong through that range of motion, right? So that's controlled mobility. Your body's moving through its full range of motion, but there's a lot of external forces that are going on your body that you have to be able to attenuate. And so unless you're able to do that, your risk of re-injury goes up, um, and it's a recipe for disaster.
I I'm curious, what is the greatest turnaround that you've seen in one of your clients that's come to you with like a drastic injury and was able to return to sport? And then like, what did they do right?
Greatest turnaround.
It doesn't, I guess it doesn't have to be to sport. It could be just like anybody that really flipped their shit around. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of these sports injuries. They're obviously very physically debilitating, but a lot of it's all between the ears. They go from being I was this athlete, I was doing all these things, and then now I'm hurt, and it mentally just can really jack you up. And so a lot of it is training your mind. That's another big part of return to sport. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel confident, or is there that little voice in the back of your head that's saying you're gonna hurt yourself? You're weak. You're weak. You're not strong. And those things can also be really damaging. Right, so making sure that you're mentally prepared, as just like a side note, that mental readiness is also really important. But yeah, I mean, coming back from an ACL injury is really hard, you know, especially as a high-level athlete, because the re-tear rate is so high. So
Yeah.
people that, if, I've seen people like, yeah, I'm on my third round of ACL. I had meniscus surgery, and then I had ACL surgery, then I retore that, then I had a cyclops lesion, then I had to go back in, clean that out, and it's like all these repetitive surgeries, and it's like you just get knocked back. Well, there goes that season. When am I going to get back to this? Am I ever going to get back to normal? Is this forever? That mental part of it really kind of picks up with that type of stuff. So people that can get past that, and then I think that also goes back to that mental toughness and trying to, or not, I think mental toughness is the wrong word, but when we were talking initially about your nervous system, calming your nervous system down, if you can consistently be like chilling out and be like, okay, let's get some perspective, that can be really helpful, as long as just consistency, realizing that it's a process.
I think that I'm going to say I think mental toughness is in a way the right terminology, because I think that in today's world, not a lot of people know what it's like to really push themselves physically.
Yeah.
I'm sure many people know how to do it mentally. I'm not going to say that they don't, because there's a lot of people that fucking build amazing companies or write amazing books and etc. But a lot of people haven't pushed that upper limit of what their body is capable of. So
I think that's the word. Grit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Grit. Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people know how to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, like, a large part of that goes into the rehabilitation process. Because they're like, rehab is not easy. I've had many injuries over the course of my life, and I'm dealing with some now, and like, the rehab part is frustrating. It can be dejecting. Like you're saying, it can be like, fuck, like, I'm not ready to return to the sport. I'm not, what if I get injured again? Like this, who am I without this? Like, wrestling with that, like, self-identity part of it. Because if you really lend, if you really try to, like, if part of you is this sport, or part of your personality, like, etc., like, that's where the problems start to go. So, like, it has to be viewed, and for some people it is, because, like, that's their job, that's all they do.
This is my career.
Yeah, this is my career, exactly. I mean, I gotta say that's something that I wrestle with. That it's like, when I have an injury, I'm like, fuck, like, I'm not gonna be able to do my job as well. And I'm sure when you were saying how your hands are sore, like, you're like, I can't.
Yeah, if anybody was ever like, do you want to go skiing? I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, exactly. There's, like, certain things that I'm like, shit, like, I need to really evaluate whether or not I should do this or not, because like if something bad happens, I won't be able to do my job.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like a lot of my goals with myself or with my clients is just like preparing for anything, but you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously can't prepare it. Like, injury proof is such an interesting term because there is nothing that is actually like injury proof. There are some things that can reduce likeliness of injury, but there's no one else, unless you're fucking Superman, you're never gonna have like totally guaranteed injury proof exercises.
Yeah, no, I mean, human body is resilient up to a point, you know, and injuries are just a part of life. Like, there's gonna be a time in your life you're gonna get hurt, it's gonna suck, but there are things you can do to kind of, get back to it. You can be proactive. It's all about your mindset.
And to your point, like about the human body being incredibly resilient, our capacity to be able to come back from severe injury is really fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Obviously, the older you get, the harder it is to recover from certain injuries.
Yeah. I mean, the longer it'll take to recover, But ultimately, I mean, like I said, I have a lot of patients that are 65 plus, and they still heal like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it, it's also like your mindset. Like your thoughts and beliefs about your body matter. If you have the mindset of like, yeah, I'm no good, my back is bad. I've been told by, XYZ that, this is out and that's out of the line and that's bad and and you have all these things of like, this is just gonna be forever. That's gonna impact your pain. And your pain's still real, but that can impact how you actually feel, right? As opposed to if you were to start to change your narrative, whole life could turn around.
Yeah, totally true. Like a lot of things that I work with my clients who have injuries or come back from things, I always talk to them like, let's stop focusing on things that you can't do. Let's focus on things that you can do. Like there's still so much that you can do. Like let's shift that mindset because I mean, it's probably very normal for humans to err on the side of like, fuck, like I can't do this shit, I can't do that, like that person can do this, but I can't. And it's hard to check yourself and be like, whoa, let's fucking let's take a break right here and like let's realize like the cool shit that I can do or the cool shit that I am.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things. Also, it's like don't be afraid to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, leaning on your friends, your family. If you need to go talk to somebody, nothing wrong with that.
No.
I talk to my patients all the time. And even just somebody to listen to, somebody to kind of check your thoughts. If your whole dialogue with yourself, if all your dialogue is between your ears, you're gonna drive yourself crazy.
Totally, and I mean, this is kind of straying away from PT and personal training, but like my approach is very holistic, so I love that we're talking about this. I think a lot of people don't. I think the world is so full of distractions these days, so we're not actually able to really hear our thoughts or have like a conversation with ourselves. And when we do, it's really just those thoughts, and it's generally at the end of the day when you put your head on your pillow because you're driving in the car, you listen to a radio, or actually, who listens to the radio? You listen to like a podcast, or you listen to Spotify, or you're listening to this podcast right now, or exactly. You're on the phone talking to a friend or a loved one, and then you get home and you're watching TV and you're constantly at work. I mean, there's never a moment in time that you're like just alone with your thoughts, and yet you're able to work through it on your own when you have the energy to as well.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, it was a little monologue rant of my own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like, it's good to set apart time to be like, how am I doing? Let's check in,
Yeah. So, I mean, this whole like point is that a large part of return to sport or return to life post injury is mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like this, like a big part of physical therapy school. Like, you want to look at the person as a whole. It's biopsychosocial, right? It's not just if you have an injury, let's do the exercises, you're better. All right, see you later.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you're a whole person with all sorts of complexities. So, that's one of the reasons why I love physical therapy is because we look at everything. That mental aspect is a huge part of getting back to doing your life.
Earlier in the podcast when we first started, you had mentioned how when you are in DPT school, you're taught that studies or evidence is like the rule of thumb. Like
Oh yeah,
everything you do
primo.
is evidence based. Where is there space in DPT practice, in your practice, or in physical therapy practice for anecdotal evidence? Not study-based evidence.
There's plenty of room for that. I mean, you have your license, you're set. And PT school really promotes evidence-based practice. And a lot of the evidence-based practice is good. It'll help you along the way. Um, but if you notice that, okay, there's not and also it's hard to do a lot of research on certain things. It's hard to really quantify or put numbers to something that is more qualitative. Um, and so that's where a lot of the subtleties and a lot of experience comes in, where it's like, oh, I've seen this before and this worked, so I'm going to try that again. And that kind of leads you to like that clinical judgment.
Mm.
Um, and so there is a lot of room for it. And so you can kind of be the PT that you want to be. Everybody has their own style in that sort of way, which is why it's great to learn from all sorts of different people. Everybody has their style, so I have multiple mentors that I've over the years. Oh, I really like that. I'm going to incorporate that. That's awesome too. I'm going to take that. Ooh, look at that. And so there's plenty of room for it. It's just kind of how you want to um, utilize everything. There was a quote that one of my professors told me in PT school. It was um, like, I forget exactly what it was, or I forget who actually said it. I'm not even. I'll probably butcher it really quick, but it was something to
Well,
the
we
effect
have a
of.
fact check after this, so if you can find it, and
Okay.
I'll read it off for you later. But let's hear
Yeah,
you butcher
yeah.
it right now.
I'll butcher it real quick. It was something to the effect of um, learn the rules like a master so that you can break them like an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, like learn all the stuff, learn all the things that you need to know, so that later down the road you can be like, okay, let's be creative here. There's some room that we can go. Because at the end of the day, as long as somebody gets better, they don't give two shits if it was, you know, evidence based or this or that. If you're feeling better, it's all gravy.
It's kind of like the idea of KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Master what's in the box, and then once you've got that mastered, you can step outside the box and get a little bit more creative.
Yeah, like that. That sounds
Like
better.
that. I want to hear the quote though. I do really want to hear it.
Yeah,
Another thing I want to.
we'll make sure to give credit for whoever said that.
Okay, perfect. Another thing I want to talk about is chronic pain. A lot of my listeners and people that follow me are people that deal with an autoimmune disease, whether it's gastrointestinal or all the way to rheumatoid arthritis. So when it comes to joint pain and chronic pain, resistance training is another key thing that you have to do to help with that. So I'm curious from a PT standpoint, when should someone, well, obviously, I'm trying to think about how to phrase this question, because resistance training is always good in a rehabilitation setting or a preventative setting. So what kind of things should we look at, or should someone look at if they are dealing with a lot of chronic pain, or example like rheumatoid arthritis where they have a lot of joint inflammation and pain? What metrics should they be looking at to effectively use resistance training on themselves?
Specifically with rheumatoid arthritis, it's an autoimmune thing. It's most likely a genetic thing. And as far as we know, and as far as literature says, there's not a cure for it.
Yeah.
But in physical therapy, we try to, manage symptoms. We try to promote strength. We try to do all these things that can help. With resistance training, you want to be careful because you can overdo it, right? If you give too much stimulation to your nervous system, to your body, you kind of get this reaction where your body just goes, nope, and they get this flare up. And so if you get a flare up that's more than a couple days, you did way too much. So you need to cut it back. So sometimes less is more, but it's all about really trying to find the balance for what works for you, And so if doing a full set of, if you do 2 or 3, 4 different supersets and you're feeling great, awesome, let's do that. And if you're able to lift, some resistance without aggravating your symptoms, good for you. Let's keep going. But don't be like, no pain, no gain, because that's not going to be fun.
Yeah, I think that point really lends itself to the idea that all of this stuff is entirely subjective to the individual. There is no one size that fits all. Every individual is a separate puzzle to solve. And what works for one person, whether it's rehab or nutritionally or strength-based or performance-based, like there's some guidelines that we can follow that is a good framework to follow for people. But, when it comes to the individual aspect, it's very subjective. So, people that are dealing with pain, whether it's chronic or an injury coming from rehab, like, it's important, I would say, to seek out help from a professional because they are experts at solving the puzzle that you're dealing with. And you can read as much as you can on the internet. I mean, anything that we want to know is on the internet. But the application of that knowledge, you don't have.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like what we were just talking about before we started the podcast, it's so hard to be objective on yourself. And even me, I've had training. I do this every day. I get an injury and I'm just like, what's going on? Like it's so hard to be objective to yourself. And so that's when I have to rely on other people. I go to my coworkers, I go to, somebody that I know is going to point me in the right direction. And it helps. It's super helpful to have somebody else be like, hey, does this sound right? So even if you do your own research, that's not a bad thing, but always check it with somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, to your point, the application of knowledge is what people can't learn on a computer or the internet or in a book. Like, how many hours would you say that you've done have like PT underneath your belt?
Oh, I don't know.
Like at least six to 7,000 plus, I'd say, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Probably more than that.
Yeah, probably more than that. Like, yeah, same. Like, I mean, I don't even program my workouts. Like I was saying, I have a coach. Like,
yeah,
like,
and that speaks volumes. That's super important.
Yeah, and
like you send me programs. That's nice.
Yeah, exactly, and like how to do it yourself too.
Yeah, I know how to do it. It's just it's so much harder to be like, oh, this is what I need to do. It's so much better for someone to be like, okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I can do that. Please tell me what to do.
Yeah, tell me what to do.
Okay, yeah. So I think like we're getting a sense as we're kind of coming to the end of this podcast that resistance training is one of the best preventative, rehabilitative things that an individual can do, depending, whatever it is that they're struggling with, whether it's an injury, inflammation, chronic pain, autoimmune disease, another type of disease. Looking at using strength training as a modality for healing and preventative measures is extremely important.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby. Um, is there anything else you want to touch on, man? I feel like we've touched on all the topics that we set out to talk about.
Yeah, I mean you're the boss.
I'm the boss. I want to
Yeah.
know, I want to know one of your favorite funny stories from high school football.
Oh man. Funny stories? Man, I have a lot of like traumatic stories.
Let's talk about that. Yeah,
But
sports are not the same. I often say that I feel like we were one of the last groups of kids that kind of were like
oh yeah. I
before
mean,
coaches had to watch what they say.
yeah, I mean ours I was just total I mean, our coaches would just take their whistles and just smack your helmet with it and you're just like, God, oh my God. Or like it'd be like August and it'd be hot as fuck and you'd be like Coach would be like, all right, we're going on the blacktop. We're doing bear crawls. And he'd be like, Coach, I got blisters. And they'd be like, be tough.
Yeah, don't be a bitch.
Yeah, you're just like, fuck.
Dude, I don't know if you remember this, but when I came back to see you guys after my head injury, and you all welcomed me back, I came after a practice, and I was standing up top. Coach fucking nut tapped me in front of everybody after
Yeah, I remember
a
that.
week before I'd had
Yeah,
brain surgery.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You'd be like, oh yeah, you think you're off limits?
Yeah, nope.
Tap to the
Yeah,
sack.
yeah, nut tap. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yes, all these things are traumatic, but it fucking made us tough, dude.
I guess.
You don't think so?
I
I mean,
guess. I
talking
mean,
about mental toughness.
did I think it really helped us? No.
No.
Were we good at football?
No,
No. Yeah, I mean, I think there probably could have been more effective ways that we could have been a better football team, but
that's
you know,
true. That's fair.
oh well, yeah,
Oh well. Yeah, we still have. It was
yeah,
fun though. It was good
yeah. I
times.
mean, it didn't help that our coaches were just dumb. They're just big box of stupid. I mean, we would have like 10 different formations and like one play for each formation. And so all the team had to do was watch our film, and we'd line
Yeah,
up. They'd be like, "Sweep right." I'd be like, "Fuck, hike." It just
yeah.
creamed us.
The football IQ of our team was not quite high.
No, not the it was
No.
the yeah that coach, not the best.
I remember loving Meet Me in the Alley. That was probably my
That
favorite
was
drill we
fun.
ever did. So Meet
That
Me in the
was
Alley,
fun.
for those of you that don't know what it is it's either one or two players or four players, and everybody starts on their back. One or two of them are defense, one or two of them are offense, and basically, you just as soon as the coach blows the whistle, you get up as fast as you can, and if you're on the offense, you try to make it past the other team. If you're on defense, you try to crack the fuck out of the other guys.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It was intense, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it
as
was
you
good
were
though.
talking
It
about
was
the
fun.
violence, or at the beginning, that's the violence that I was like,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, but that is also the time that I was talking about that I saw that one of the gnarliest looks in your eyes.
yeah, yeah. There's a side of me where there's a flip. The switch can flip, and all of a sudden, there's a side of me I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, you're Papa Bear now, man. It's
Yeah,
probably there.
I'm
It's
just
definitely there.
it's there. It's there. I just try to be as even keel as possible, and if it needs to
Yeah.
come out, it'll come out.
It's interesting that we're talking about this. Is that weirdly enough, in the last 2 months, I have almost seen Rachel and Butter get hit by a car 2 different times. Um,
Ooh.
and I think that is the last 2 times that I felt that switch crank up.
Yeah,
Um, I
yeah.
almost chased this kid down.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Um,
Yeah, there's been similar things where I'm just like something will happen, just like, yeah,
they deserve
yeah.
justice. I need justice.
I'm I'm scared I'm gonna kick a kid. Like if like the first time like a kid really is doing something to my little girl, I just need to be able to like hone it back. I really
that,
don't want to go to jail.
that diaphragmatic breathing, man.
I gotta do it. I gotta do it.
Just calm that central nervous system.
Yeah, for real.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, and I don't know if you remember our track team, but track was such a different sport than football.
Oh, I was much more inclined for that.
It was nice. It was relaxing. And coaching was not mostly positive reinforcement.
She was the best coach I had ever had in high school. She was phenomenal.
Hankton, right?
Well, Hankton, no. But our throwing coach.
Our throwing coach.
Coach Kate.
Coach Kate.
Kate Collier.
She was awesome.
Coach Kate.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Kate. And then right before that we had Coach Licata.
Yeah, he was cool too. He didn't like me as much.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it's because
that was the year that I was hurt.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was the year
that I was hurt, and he just thought I was a little bitch. But it's okay.
And Kate knew.
I forgive you, Coach Licata. Yeah, Kate knew what's up. Yeah.
Yeah, Coach Kate was awesome. See, that was a great way to finish out our. Dude, I remember. I was on the shot put. I mean, I wasn't great. I was never able to particularly. I was never able to pass the 40. 40. Gosh, what? 40 feet. 40.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure it was maybe feet? 55 or something like that. Because I mean,
it was like
you
a 40.
threw further than I did, and I was like at 45, 46.
Whatever it was.
So you were probably over 50.
I remember it was the last meet of our senior year, and I was throwing, and so every time you throw, you get 3 chances. And I threw the first one, and I didn't hit whatever marker I was trying to hit. The second one I DQ'd on because I fell out of the circle. And I remember Coach Kate gave me one of the best pep talks I've ever had. I don't even remember what the fuck she said, but whatever it was, I fucking hit it. And it was the last throw I ever had of my track career. Yeah. To your point, man, that self-talk, that mental stuff, and having that support system is massive for success.
Yeah. Perfect. It really came full circle.
Who's your favorite coach that you ever had in our high school career, whether football or track?
Oh, Coach Kate.
Coach Kate.
Down. Yeah.
She was awesome.
Hands down.
Do you follow her on Facebook?
Facebook, yeah, but I don't go on Facebook anymore. Yeah, I don't.
It seems like her and her son are doing really well. Gosh, I should reach out to her and see if she wants to be on the podcast. That would be a fun interview.
Yes, for sure.
Well, man, I love you. I really appreciate you coming on here. I know you are a dad, and you probably have to get to dad duties tonight. So I want to thank you for coming on and spending the past hour chatting to me about pain and rehab and how resistance training is king. Are there any last pearls of wisdom that you want to drop on the listeners?
Pearls of wisdom, just drink water. Drink water and train your glutes.
There you go. Strong butt club and stay hydrated. All right, dude. Thank you so much. If people want to find out more about you or potentially work with you, where can people find you?
If you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me via email. My email is my last name, lozadpt@gmail.com. You feel free to, follow me on Instagram. It's just a bunch of dad stuff, though. It's just my name, Gabe Loza. Not really any PT stuff on there. But yeah, if you ever want to get in touch with me, have any questions about physical therapy, shoot me an email. Love to connect.
You definitely should. Gabe has done work on me, and he's a fucking wizard. So definitely should. You're welcome, man. You. I love you, dude. And I'm so happy that you're able to come on the podcast again.
Dude, thank you for having me. This has been a blast. Anytime that anybody, I'll be happy to come on.
All right, man. Maybe you'll just be our repeat guest every season.
I'd be down.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope I've inspired and motivated you. I hope your inner fat kid is more proud of you today than they were before this. Fitness is a journey everyone should start, but no one should finish. So whether you're continuing or starting yours, I am so glad that we get to be a part of each other's. With Fitness, Noah.